Welcome back, guys, to another data mine. Apologies if I sound any different, I'm not recording from my usual spot today. Azur Lane's global servers are celebrating their 7th anniversary this month. Part of that included a live stream last weekend, which I covered over on my Twitch channel, and includes quite a few new additions to the game. One of which is the brand new French event Secrets of the Abyss, which we'll talk about today, but there's plenty of other things going on related to the anniversary stream. As with every anniversary, we're going to get plenty of rewards, and in true Azur Lane fashion, they are generous, although not unexpected because they're exactly what the Chinese got for their anniversary too. As with every anniversary, there is the double gem reset, so a perfect time to buy new gems at a higher efficiency rate. We are once again going to get a wishing well, which I think is a great mechanic for mid-game players. Also, the timing feels a little bit better here because it's not during a UR event, although we will get one next month. And I won't go over everything that's being rerun, we'll stick generally to the new stuff, but I will point out that Eldritch's special retrofit item is coming back, not in this update, but next update, so do not miss out on that. We also get some quality of life updates, the most relevant of which is an update to the UI of the skin shop, which I definitely will welcome. It definitely needed an overhaul, anything to stop it from crashing all the time. Lastly, I'd like to remind you that if you didn't watch the stream with us, to make sure you claim your stream rewards, I picked out the 2 special codes for you guys here. They are eligible until August 27th. And while that covers a lot of what the stream had going on, remember there are going to be 2 in-person events, a partnership collab with the New Jersey Museum, as well as one across the pond in France on the Libre.
And now, one of your favorite places. My stern. Don't you totally love it? Come on!
So with that out of the way, I think I can move on to today's new event. Secrets of the Abyss is an Iris Libre event. It should follow a standard non-UR novel event structure. Paired with it will also be a minigame with rewards, and as usual there will be a brand new dorm theme, in this case spa related, as well as gear skins, which are witch themed? And speaking of skins, there are plenty of new ship skins as well. They went with a spa/onsen theme, which obviously lended to them being very lewd. There is plenty of motion in these skins, whether it be dynamic motion or L2Ds. In fact, as part of this event, they unveiled for the first time a new type of skin, the L2D+. It's a little bit more expensive, but only by 80 gems. This will be showcased by 2 ship girls, Bois Belleau and Anchorage. If they sell well, I imagine we'll get more of these in the future. The main differentiating factor that makes a skin an L2D+ is the presence of these angles. They look presumably compromising, very lewd, and we shall see what the player base thinks. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Personally, I think that this is the most risque and lewd batch of skins that I can recall in Azur Lane's history. In fact, even Helena's dynamic motion skin got the official Facebook page nuked. Also, there was one other skin I forgot to mention. This was a nice treat that they ended post-credits of the stream. It is the long-awaited Rune Oath skin. So Iron Blood mains, you got something in this anniversary too. Also part of this update, but not quite part of this event, is new updates to ships. Essex, the Lemon Queen herself, will actually be getting a retrofit. This will make her a UR. I really like this new standard of getting UR retrofits during the EN anniversary. I know it's difficult to get a UR gacha event because we have the Japanese anniversary right afterward. That would be hard on cubes. So we get our UR ship, but in a little bit different way. It's a retrofit. And so I want to talk about Essex Retrofit first because that is what I'm most excited about. Stat-wise, she got a buff. Not much to survivability, she barely moved her HP and anti-air stat and didn't touch her evasion stat, but she gets 80 extra aviation stat. That makes her by and away the largest aviation stat ship in the game. She's the first ship to cross the 500 threshold, and there is a huge gap between her and second place. Admiral Nakamov and her Kiryu couldn't even manage 470 aviation stat. On top of that, she sneakily also will have the highest reload of any carrier in the game. We're not counting light carriers, just full-on aircraft carriers. She's also going to get a 5% weapon efficiency boost to her first and second plane slots, as well as a 10% efficiency boost to her third plane slot. Additionally, she's going to have some added flexibility because her second plane slot will now be a universal plane slot. Any plane can go there, not just dive bombers. This is pretty good because currently dive bombers are frequently the plane that you would rather not have. But also in the future, she'll be able to adapt to any meta changes in equipment. Also, as part of her retrofit, she will upgrade her Valorous Avengers skill. This is the skill that gave her her additional barrage airstrike that caused flooding, and just like I predicted on the live stream, one of the boosts is that it triggers at the start of the battle in addition to every airstrike. That's an awesome effect. It allows you to get that damage over time early in the battle on enemies hit. Additionally, the torpedoes are going to have a tracking effect, so that's going to very much increase the effectiveness of the damage coming off this barrage airstrike. Oddly enough, she's also going to change her skill from dealing 10% extra damage to battleships to dealing 10% extra damage to heavy armor enemies, so not a strictly better buff. A lot of aircraft carriers are medium armor anyway. It's interesting. This part of the skill feels odd to me because it's not really a buff. Maybe it is a little bit if we're gonna like look technically on how many are of each. You're gonna technically be able to hit like some of the weird hull classes that are heavy armor anyway. I don't know. It's kind of a wash for me personally, but the other two parts are perfect. They're what I called. We like them. She doesn't change her other two skills, but she does add a brand new skill. At the start of the battle, and when this ship's airstrike is fully reloaded, not necessarily when it's launched, she's going to trigger a special aerial barrage. This is also going to give her a stack on her second skill. Each stack increases her aviation stat by 3%, max of 5 stacks. This will actually really help her get those stacks when she's not shooting down planes. Less reliant on the enemy to get your buffs. Nice. Also, can we just talk about the fact that she gets 2 barrages at the start of the battle now? Also, as part of this, she's going to generate a shield for the Vanguard fleet that blocks 8 bullets for 10 seconds. If the shield is broken within those 10 seconds, all of the Vanguard fleet is going to heal 3% of max HP. So now she has a heal, so that's good for mobbing. She can be a mobber now. She can also get into the heavy armor damage. Her flex slot actually allows her to get 6 fighter planes, so if you really want to, you could probably pair her with Yorktown for light armor enemies too. This skill's not done yet because it also gets a cross fleet. When the ship's afloat, when another fleet enters the battle, 25 seconds after the start of battle, she's going to trigger a special barrage as well. So in total UR fashion, she gets a cross fleet, she gets 2 barrages at the start of the battle. Those barrages are really good. She helps stack better so you don't have to rely on enemies. She gets a shield and a heal, and she also was pretty good before. I'm a little sad that they didn't update her second skill that gives her a boost for every Eagle Union carrier in the same fleet. I would have hoped that just said Eagle Union main fleet ship. That way she could be paired with New Jersey or Kearsarge without taking a penalty. But, you know, I do really like what they did. Her new retrofit skill looks really good. Her update to the first skill, I totally saw that coming, but I'm very happy with it. I think Essex gets really powerful here. I think part of the strength boost here is just raw stats. Like the reload and aviation buffs are crazy. And don't forget the efficiencies, and the flexibility is nice. Essex looks very good here. I'm very interested in trying her out post retrofit. You won't be able to get her immediately upon release because you'll be time gated basically, so you'll have to get that retrofit item, but I'm very excited to use her. She looks very lit. Good job. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. All right, that was stupid. Let's move on to the next stuff. Before I get into the event ships, we actually have 3 other upgrades, and this is Fate Simulations to PR7. None of the DRs today, just the PRs. Obligatory, every Fate Simulation is going to add luck to the 0 luck stat ships, so that's really good. You're going to need 165 blueprints to fully Fate Simulate something, and in the end, you're really just upgrading a skill. I'm going to talk about Halford's first. I'm interested in this one because Halford actually has been broken for almost a whole year. They just, and I mean just, fixed the bugs with her airplane targeting, so hopefully that makes her better, and then she's also getting a Fate Simulation, so I'm glad that they fixed that bug. Probably when they were taking a look at her for this Fate Simulation, they were like, hey, this doesn't work, so I'm glad they fixed that. For her skill Nocturnal Judgment, she's going to get a couple boosts. First of all, she's going to get a 20% firepower stat boost added on top of the aviation stat, so that's good because she deals a lot of her damage in firepower too, not just aviation. Also, she's going to mark all enemies with her decreased evasion debuff instead of just a single target. That's going to be nice. No longer have to deal with RNG speed too. Also, the on-hit part of this skill is significantly buffed. First of all, it's also going to trigger if she's equipping torpedoes, so if you don't want to have the aviation plane, she's not completely useless because this will work for her torpedoes now. Additionally, it will increase all damage taken, not just shelling damage. It'll also last for 8 seconds instead of 6 seconds, and it's also going to improve this ship's airstrike. So Halford needed a lot of buffs, but it looks like she got a lot of them, so that's good. A lot of her effectiveness will come down to how they fixed her airstrike bug though. However, I think she's moving significantly in the right direction. Alright, let's move on to Daisen. She's already used quite frequently as a mobber. She's upgrading her casualty anchor skill, aka her barrage. It basically just gets improved. Instead of alternating between her torpedo barrage and her burn, she's basically going to get both of them every time. Enemies hit by this barrage are going to be inflicted with a special burn for 15 seconds, and she's going to get her torpedo barrage improved. That's just a win-win, extra damage, no janky alternating thing. Also, when the skill Blessings and Purity is activated, the recon plane can target up to 3 additional enemies. If you recall, this targeted the enemy furthest away from Daisen and increases her damage to it by 20%. Now she gets to target 3 things for that. This feels much nicer for mobbing too. So I think this helps solidify her in her mobbing slot because her barrage is significantly increased. She gets to have that burn every time. She doesn't have to wait for it. The increased uptime will be significant, and the fact that she can give damage boosts to more enemies will help with a screen full of plenty of enemies instead of a single boss target. She got a nice Fate Simulation here too. Last but not least, Bayard. Actually, this is the one I'm probably most interested in because she's the closest to being meta relevant, and this might very well be the most boring upgrade I've ever seen. Instead of 15% boost to her firepower and reload, she's going to get 20%, and then they just add a flat 15% more damage across the board. It's definitely really boring, maybe even a little lazy, but it's good. I mean, they must have looked at her and said, her design is perfect. All we can do to buff her is to give her a flat 15% damage increase, which, by the way, is good. Maybe I'm asking for too much. She got a fine Fate Simulation. I was just kind of excited for some kit changes. That's just a me problem. Obviously, I like going over new kits and everything, but nothing much to report here, just more damage. All right, with that, we can finally get into the event ships. The event shop has no new equipment, only Hardi, who is the free ship that you can get also as a map drop, and the Poi 5. So let's start with her. Hardi is an SR free French destroyer. Stat-wise, she has nothing to write home about. Sub 2000 HP and only 42 speed. She's a French destroyer. So slow. I guess I'll have to admit her destroyer gun efficiency is not bad, but it's not a main gun +1. She also gets plus 30% stats to her auxiliary equipment as her limit break 3. Let's move on to the skills. Skill number 1, she gets plus 20% firepower boost. That's helpful. Brings her more in line with a Laffy 2 firepower stat. Additionally, she's going to get plus 20% efficiency to her first and second weapon slots. The second weapon slot, not so important, but the first weapon slot was already a pretty high 150%. So at 170%, that starts to be slightly significant. So yay. If the lead ship in your Vanguard fleet is a Free French or a Vichy French ship, this is also really easy to do because if you put her in the front, that triggers it, but she doesn't have to be in the front because she's very squishy, so we like this. All your Vanguard, regardless of faction, is going to get plus 15% firepower damage dealt. It's actually really solid. That's actually, yeah, just really, really good. You obviously can't do it with torpedo boosts, so that's where your Vanguard's typically dealing most of its damage, but there are some really good buffs here, like Hindenburg would really appreciate this, so this is not a bad skill there. Also, every 20 seconds, she's going to trigger a special barrage. If this ship is equipping a free French equipment, VG French doesn't count, improve the barrage. Enemies hit by this barrage are going to get minus 30% speed debuff for 6 seconds, and it can't stack with itself or any other slows. The slow is fine, it's standard, it's easy to trigger. It's not too hard to get a French equipment on her, whether it's the URAA gun or it's the French destroyer gun. Overall, this skill is good, but not like outstanding. I think it does just enough to keep her relevant past her bad stats, and let's move on to skill number 2, see if that helps out too. While this ship is afloat, she gives minus 10% damage taken to your main fleet. There is definitely certain content in Azur Lane where that skill is relevant, although probably not a majority of content. Also, every 20 seconds, the lowest HP percent surface fleet ship takes 10% less damage for 10 seconds. That actually has a pretty good uptime once you get to 20 seconds. When any surface fleet ship takes damage, to drop it below 70% HP, or 30 seconds after the battle starts, whichever happens first, she's going to boost her evasion stat by 30% and her speed by 6, as well as reduce the cooldown of her skill 1 barrage by 10 seconds after the next time it's triggered. So that cooldown will be 10 seconds instead of 20 seconds, but it is very delayed, so theoretically you could wait 20 seconds for it to trigger and then you would get the cooldown, so you wait 10 seconds, so it could be a long time before it actually takes effect. But if you're lucky, it could actually be a short time. You could trigger the barrage right afterward and get the cooldown reduction. The +6 speed would generally be nice, but she's already pretty slow as her base speed. You know, she's not like these +50 speed destroyers that a lot of the French have. So I don't know, this skill is also decent. I think this ship is kind of mid. I think it's just above average. I think it does what it needs to do. You can definitely use it in all sorts of content. I think it's kind of a fun ship. I think it will pair very well with Brest. You can put her in the front to trigger the effects for her, and then also, you know, not have to put her as the lead tank. Brest is really good at tanking. She also has heals. And then you could throw something like Hindenburg to take full advantage of that firepower damage. I think this ship's actually pretty decent, especially considering she's an SR in 2025. All right, let's move on to the next SR ship, Bois Belleau. And yes, you read that right. She is an Independence class. If you're confused, that is an American class. Bois Belleau is actually made by the Americans and then transferred to the French later. So in-game, she's going to be a free French SR light carrier. Obviously, light carriers as a ship type struggle in any role other than a supporter because their stats are significantly lacking those of aircraft carriers. She's kind of in that same boat. Her stats are actually pretty good. That 376 aviation stat is really good compared to other light carriers. And like her sister, she has top of the line reload stat. Her HP is above average for a light carrier, and a lot of these are going to be in reference to light carriers. When we look at her equipment, we actually see some good things. Unlike most light aircraft carriers, she is going to have 8 planes because both of her slots are actually 4 planes each. That's a really big boost over other light aircraft carriers, which are 3-3s, so she's going to get extra planes. This is actually something that her sister Independence got during her retrofit, and that's one of the reasons why Independence is very good. So it's good to see that she starts off with that. The only downside is her weapon efficiencies are much less than her sister Independence, but I digress. We shouldn't spend too much time talking about a light aircraft carrier's stats because it's really in the skills which makes or breaks a ship like this. Skill number 1, plus 15% aviation and anti-air stat. When this ship is equipped with a USS or a free French plane, there's that reference to the transfer. We like that in a skill. She gets plus 15% slot 1 efficiency and slot 2 efficiency. That's nice. That helps catch her up. She actually matches the efficiency of her sister Independence in the fighter slot with this skill, but still lower in the torpedo slot. And this causes her to be locked to a specific type of plane. Also, when this ship takes damage to drop her HP below 20%, she's going to get minus 25% damage taken and minus 100% burn damage taken for 20 seconds. Only triggers once per battle. She's a backliner. She's supposed to be hidden. This shouldn't make a big difference. Also, 20% of her HP is not a lot because she's got a low HP pool compared to other main fleet ships. And yeah, I don't really like this skill very much at all. I really don't. It's just a boring stat stick boost on the top. Then we are locking ourselves into specific planes to get weapon efficiencies that other ships of her caliber already have as base default. And then we get a pretty useless damage debuff. So skill number 1, not so hot. Skill number 2, when this ship launches an airstrike, she's going to trigger a barrage. 100%. We like that. Also, she's going to reduce the cooldown of her first 2 airstrikes by 50%. Her sister only has a 25% reduction on the first airstrike. She gets 50% on the first 2. So this is actually probably the best part of her kit. It allows her to hit those damage timers early, which is good, especially for mobbing. It's also kind of an interesting time frame because it's kind of in that schedule of damage that is harder for ships to deal damage. So in mob fleets that want to have consistent damage curves, she will help smooth that out a little bit. Overall though, I don't like this ship. I think it's kind of bad. I think there's very limited reasons to run this over Independence, and it's pretty much strictly if you're trying to get damage in that window in which her reduced cooldown is effective. So yeah, I don't think she's like collection only tier, but she's like just a league above that. I think for veteran players, she'll be most valued for her fleet tech. All right, moving on to the last SR of the new event, Massena. She is a battle cruiser. And stat-wise, she doesn't look all that impressive, even when you're comparing her to just battle cruisers, which is not that powerful of a designation. Her firepower is very low, and that's probably to help offset the fact that she has a preloaded salvo. Like a lot of French, she does have a preloaded salvo. A lot of the early French ships with this buff actually lost a shot in order to gain that boost. She actually has all 3 of her shots. That's really nice. So she doesn't lose any. She keeps them all and has a preloaded salvo. But where she gives up is the fact that she has low stats and like efficiencies on ships from like 2019. All right, let's take a look at her skills. Skill number 1, when a main fleet ship fires their main gun, 100% chance for this ship to gain a stack of lucky cents, max 3 stacks. So she actually counts for this. She is a main fleet ship, and she has a preloaded, so that actually gets her a stack basically at the beginning of the battle. And then if you have her and another battleship, when they get to the first reload, she'll probably get 2 more stacks, one from herself and then one from the other battleship that you have. So that's not too bad. She only can carry a max of 3, so I'm not sure if you need to go full battleship, although it probably wouldn't be a bad idea either, especially if you can get some that have preloaded like other French ships or UVH or Sedolitz or Vittorio Veneto, etc. There are a bunch of them, so you can actually stack this pretty early. Each stack is going to give herself 4 luck, so she's going to get 12 luck. That's kind of interesting. And her base luck is actually pretty good to begin with. She's also going to get 4% main gun crit rate and 4% main gun crit damage. Those will stack 3 times, so 12% respectively at max stacks. So that's kind of like adding a shell to her. Not bad. Doesn't put too many restrictions on your fleet building. She basically is required to have another battleship in the fleet though. All right, skill number 2. When the ship fires her main guns or when the special barrage lucky fire is triggered, there is a 40% chance to trigger a special barrage lucky fire. So I was a little confused there, but it actually means that she could theoretically infinitely stack her barrages, kind of like Ranger. And it's kind of funny because it's called lucky fire. She has lucky stack. She has a really high lucky stat. So she is going to be total luck based. I'm seeing that theme now. That also explains the 40% chance to trigger, which is very low for a modern ship. And generally, I don't like low barrage trigger chances and leaving things to RNG, but I do think it fits with the kit that they're going with for this specific ship. For each stack of lucky cents, she's going to increase this trigger chance by 16%. So assuming those are additive at 3 stacks, that means she'll be at 88% chance to trigger. That actually seems pretty high when each trigger has a chance at triggering again, so she could trigger multiple times. 88% sounds really good. You really want to get lucky stacks really quickly. So if you get like a triple preloaded French fleet, you could actually get her max stacks right at the start, and then she'll have like 88% chance to get these infinite triggers. That's cool. When the ship is at full stacks of lucky cents, she enters a super lucky state and triggers a special barrage lucky fire. So that's actually really cool. So as soon as you get the 3rd stack, she's going to get a guaranteed barrage, and that barrage can actually trigger the barrages again, potentially. So that's cool. And then when this ship has at least 1 luck sense stack, that should be always, right? She has a preloaded, she's going to trigger herself right off the bat, and unless I'm missing something where she loses these stacks, that should pretty much be always. Anyway, when she has a stack and she takes damage to drop her below 30% HP, she's going to trigger a special barrage lucky fire. That is also going to trigger the infinite things. And I've been saying all these infinite things just to read this part. It can only be triggered a maximum of 3 times in a 5-second interval. All right, we can only trigger it 3 times. We can't go infinite. That makes me really sad. I understand why they did that, because 88% chance of triggering, if you could max stack like immediately, like I was saying, that would get really good really fast. The fact that they kind of cap her here makes me really sad. I was very excited to abuse this. I like breaking things. This would have broken things. I would have had fun with that. The fact that this little caveat exists, I'm a little sad about that. Okay, that's fine. The lower the ship's HP percent, the higher the ship's evasion rate, up to 15%. Okay, that just helps for survivability. And if this ship is in the super lucky state, so basically max stacks, the evasion rate is gained by 30% instead of 15. So, okay, basically you're gonna have max stacks most of the time. So evasion rate 30% does really help with survivability. So is this ship good? No. But is it fun? Well, for about half this data mine, I thought it was gonna be really fun, and they've capped the fun, but I still think it could be pretty fun. I do like the idea of this kind of luck stacks and really RNG. I do really appreciate the specialness of the kit, even though it's not necessarily useful. It's kind of like I appreciate Ranger's kit, despite the fact Ranger's not good. But yeah, so I kind of put her in that regard, but I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like I could have abused her and really gotten infinite stacks, and I feel like they put cramp in my style there. But otherwise, there's not a lot of chance that you were going to be triggering it, you know, all these times. And the cap of 3 times in 5 seconds is not like terribly bad. So I'm probably overreacting. The ship was probably never that good to begin with, but I kind of got excited for the kit. Anyway, she's the ultimate luck sack. That's what she is. So we have 2 more ships. They're both elite. So let's go talk about them really quickly. First up is elite light cruiser Duguay-Trouin. She doesn't have anything super attractive about her stats. So let's move on to her skills. At the start of the battle, she's going to heal plus 10% of her max HP. That's kind of nice. When this ship is equipped with an HE main gun, she gets plus 10% HE damage dealt. She doesn't really have a secondary gun because she has a torpedo slot, so I'm not sure why it couldn't just be gun damage dealt, because it's already locked by the restriction, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. She's also going to get plus 15% damage versus light and medium armor enemies, so obviously you would never bring her against heavy armor because she has to have HE ammo and doesn't get the buff, but she's also an elite light cruiser. That's probably not going to be very good. All right, skill number 2. At the start of the battle, she's going to get plus 15% evasion stat for 20 seconds. Also, every 15 seconds, she's going to trigger a special barrage and have a 50% chance to fire an additional round of torpedoes for this ship's equipped torpedo weapons. She's not really a good torpedo ship, so the fact that she gets an additional chance to fire is, you know, it's a good skill, but it's not really her niche that she's good at. And then all she has left is an all-out assault. So this is definitely a collection-only ship. She's not very good, so waifu over meta if you must. But let's move on to the next elite. Last ship of the day is the French heavy cruiser Duquesne, and oh boy, are her stats not just not impressive, they are miserable. She's a heavy cruiser with 3,500 health. She's also a torpedo heavy cruiser, but her torpedo stat is less than 200. Awful. Her first skill gives her plus 30% evasion stat, and then every 2 main gun shots, she does not have a main gun plus 1 despite being a heavy cruiser, she's gonna get plus 10% evasion rate, but this only lasts 7 seconds. It can be refreshed with it triggers again. Skill number 2. Every 2 enemy fleet defeated in a sortie, plus 3% damage dealt. This has a cap of 3 stacks. And then every 3 enemy ships this ship defeated in a battle, plus 5% firepower, torpedo, and hit stat, max 3 stacks. So 15% boost there. I mean, these could probably be infinite, and it still probably wouldn't even be that good. She also gets an all-out assault. This is a very bad ship. Very much collection only. It's almost comically bad, frankly. But yeah, the 2 elites, not too surprised they're bad. All right, overall, how do I think about this? Well, I'm excited. Not for any of the ships in the event, really. I think all of them are pretty much not going to be used by me. I think the one ship I was moderately excited about as I was like mid-reading until I realized they actually capped her. The destroyer's like usable. The light carrier's not very good. The battle cruiser's not very good either. She's just like fun if you want to luck. The elites are bad. So none of the French ships are actually very good. Not too surprising. It's not a UR event. However, I am kind of excited for the upgrades. I think Essex is really cool. Essex will finally be meta, maybe. I mean, she already has a meta variant, but that's a different type of meta. So I'm excited for that. I think she is going to hit really hard. I think she has a lot more flexibility. I think, frankly, she's going to be powerful enough you could use her against light armor enemies if you want to in a USS aircraft carrier fleet. I think she can totally be used against heavy armor enemies. I think you run the the risk of like kind of breaking your synergy with IJN carriers, but I think she's very solid there. Once again, she's also Essex class, so that pairs nicely with Yorktown. So I'm very excited with what they did with Essex, and I think they delivered on the hype that I kind of had after watching the live stream. So I'm very happy with that. In terms of the Fate Sims, I think they're all pretty solid. I think Bayard, I'm a little bit sad, but it's good. It's like a good Fate Sim. It's just boring. I think Halford probably got the biggest win. She got her, targeting airstrike fixed, so that's really good. She's also going to go from 4 planes in her airstrike to 8, so that's really good, and her skill got significantly buffed in so many different ways of all these like weird restrictions they kind of just basically remove. So I think Halford actually has a chance to shine post Fate Simulation, so that's exciting. And even Daisen had a good Fate Sim too, so I think all the Fate Sims are pretty solid. So I'm very happy with all the upgrades. All the new ships, not so much. And the skins, yeah, well, skins are the skins. But anyway, I'll be streaming this event, so be sure to look out for that. And thank you guys for watching. Take care, subscribe if you like this content, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.